There is no connection we know today between the Jews that came from Eastern Europe and Palestine. Zionism doesn't start with Jews. The Jews have to go back to Palestine. Why is Israel important for the West? The West lives on destruction. The Americans don't care if Ukraine is totally destroyed. They are making a lot of money out of it. Until the 7th of October, Israel was the most divided country on earth. It's difficult.
That's strange.
It is ready to do things that the West is not ready to do itself.
Dirty work, you mean?
Dirty work, exactly. These are the words that of the German chancellor, yeah?
الصهيونية بدأت كفكرة في أوروبا في القرن ال19، في زمن كانت فيه القوميات بتتشكل والإمبراطوريات بتتمدد. بعد الحرب العالمية الثانية الفكرة تحولت لدولة، ومع الوقت الدولة تحولت لنظام أمني كامل. قبل 7 أكتوبر إسرائيل كانت بتقدم نفسها كديمقراطية حديثة، بل وجيش أخلاقي كمان. بعد 7 أكتوبر الوضع اختلف، الصورة الكاملة بقت مختلفة. الحلقة دي محاولة نفهم هل اللي حصل ده كان تغيير ولا كشف العقيدة وفكر كان في الأصل موجود. معانا النهاردة البروفيسور حاييم بريشيت، مؤسس الشبكة اليهودية من أجل فلسطين. ولد لوالدين نجوا من معسكرات الاعتقال النازية أو الهولوكوست. خدم في الجيش الإسرائيلي وأستاذ دراسات السينما والثقافة وباحث في العلاقة بين الصورة والسلطة. بروفيسور حاييم، أهلا بيك.
Thank you.
أنا حابب أبدأ حلقتي بعنوان كبير، وده هيبقى عنوان بحث الحلقة كلها، ألا وهو: هل الصهيونية قبل 7 أكتوبر اختلفت بعد 7 أكتوبر؟
Right.
But before we start, let's just start with the definition, direct and concise definition for Zionism.
Well, Zionism, very simply, is a Western phenomenon. It is a settler colonial state of Western settlers in an Arab country called Palestine. There is no connection we know today, genetic or historical, between the Jews that came from Eastern Europe and Palestine. They were the result of, different cultures that changed over to Judaism in the 10th century. There was no expulsion of Jews from Palestine in the days of Jesus. Mm-hmm. This is a myth. So Zionism is a political movement which has a machinery, and the machinery is colonial. It's settler colonialism. Settler colonialism, as opposed to normative colonialism, is not using people as cheap labor. Settler colonialism is getting rid of indigenous populations, like in Latin America, in North America, in Latin America, in many other parts of the world, Australia, etc. So in some areas, settlers move in and they use the local population because they know the conditions and so on. They're cheap to employ. They use them and abuse them. And this is normative colonialism. But settler colonialism is about replacement of the indigenous. And that's what they planned for Palestine. Now, Zionism doesn't start with Jews. As you know, Zionism started as a Christian movement. Yeah, it starts as a Christian movement. It goes for a while, but in the 19th century, it starts in Britain.
In Britain, okay.
In the 1830s, 40s. So it started almost 200 years ago. And it's a very strong movement because it's built on Protestantism that was more radical than Catholicism by that time. And Protestantism also brought the Bible to the believers. Catholics didn't use the Bible. The Hebrew Bible was mainly unknown to Catholics. But Protestants have brought the Bible into every home, into every church.
Old Testament.
The Old Testament, yeah. And that meant that, for example, names like David, Aaron, Isaac, and so on become not just Jewish names, but they become Christian names in Britain and then in America and so on. And because the book of Revelations tells Christians that in order for the second coming to happen, the Jews have to go back to Palestine, where they will be destroyed, most of them. And the few that will not be destroyed in the Armageddon will then turn to Christianity and be saved. This is what the book of Revelations have told Christians. So a lot of Christians in England are thinking we should actually do something about getting the Jews to Palestine. Now that is anyway something they want to do because the people of Europe don't actually like the Jews. Remember that Britain was the first country in Europe that banned all the Jews. In 1290, after burning the Jews of York, they got rid of all the other Jews. And this is also a result of Islamophobia. Because at the same time, they fought the Muslims in Palestine, of course. And Jews and Muslims have never actually fought. Jews lived with Muslims everywhere peacefully in the Muslim world.
That's correct.
There was what we now call convivencia. They lived together peacefully because they were the people of the book. And they also lived together with Christians in Palestine. Let's take Palestine as an example. In Palestine, for 2,000 years, Christians, Muslims, Jews lived together until Zionism came. There is one exception, the Crusades. The Crusaders came and they killed everyone in Jerusalem. They even killed the Christians. Why? Because the Christians lived with Muslims and Jews, so they were not kosher anymore. Yeah, so the 60,000 people in Jerusalem were killed in 3 days of blood, and everyone died: Christians, Muslims, and Jews. So this is the only exception in 2,000 years that Jews, Christians, and Muslims had. Otherwise, they lived together in the same communities. You go to Palestine today, and a lot of the villages have a mosque and have a church. There's no problem there. And in the old days, there were also some places that had synagogues, like Tiberias, Safed, of course, Jerusalem, Jaffa. People lived together. And they lived together because they had a connection. The connection was actually starting with Judaism as the main monotheistic religion, going to Christianity, and then to Islam. Now, the people of Palestine started not only, but started many of them as Jews in the time of Christ. Christ changed us. A lot of them moved to Christianity. And then a lot of them moved to Islam. The same people, they didn't leave. Christians didn't come from somewhere.
Smooth transition.
Yeah, it was totally smooth, and it was not by force. People, those that chose, did it. Those that chose to remain, they remained. Yeah. And they lived together because they knew each other. They were the same community. So this is the first thing that we need to understand about Zionism, that it's disruptive. It disrupts, even when it's Christian Zionism, it disrupts order in the Middle East. That's what it is about. And it did that in the Crusades. And then in the 19th century, they plan it again. Now, of course, the empire that controls the Middle East is a Muslim empire. It's the Ottomans.
Ottoman Empire.
The Ottoman Empire actually was quite peaceful until the very last part in the 20th century. They called it the sick man of Europe.
Yeah,
There was nothing.
Weak, yeah.
This was wrong. It was a multinational, multi-religious, multi-ethnic, multicultural
civilization.
Yeah, it was a civilization, exactly. It wasn't just an empire, it was a civilization. Now look at Syria, look at Lebanon, look at Iraq, look at Iran, and of course look at Palestine. These are multicultural civilizations.
All of them was under one umbrella.
But that umbrella didn't break.
Them,
didn't use one against the other, like the Roman Empire, like the British Empire, like the French Empire. No, you're Christian, I'm Muslim, he's Jewish, fine. Yeah. So we have Alawites, and we have Kurds, and we have Bedouins, and we have Druze, and there's so many people, Yazidis. Yeah. Think about Iran. So we don't need one nation. So these societies, these civilizations were very rich and very peaceful, and they were mainly trading and societies that lived off the land. And they were very peaceful. Now, what happens when the West comes, which is Zionism, and Zionism is a Western invention.
خلينا نقف حضرتك هنا، وعايز بس أعرف إزاي اتطورت الفكرة من فكرة مسيحية إلى الفكرة الصهيونية المتأخرة في القرن 19.
Christian Zionism is a very established movement. What do I mean by that? It's a movement of the Christian elite in Britain. The Christian elite in Britain, meaning writers like George Eliot, Disraeli, who is a novelist but also a prime minister, Churchill later on, Balfour, Asquith, those people were Christian Zionists. But how did it actually work? If you look at an organization, one of the first scientific organizations in Europe is the Palestine Exploration Fund. They, as you come from Egypt, you know that Egyptology is the birth of archaeology. And it's a great gift that Egypt has given to humanity. And Palestine, of course, was also very important archaeologically, because what did the Christian Zionists do? They wanted to prove that the Bible was true. They were Christians. So for them, because they are not just Christians, but they are Protestant Christians, the Old Testament is telling stories that they want to prove. The story of the Jews in Egypt. We know today that there is no story there. That the Jews in Egypt have never gone through what is described in the Old Testament. Archaeologists, Israeli archaeologists partly, proved that the whole story of crossing Sinai in 40 years and all that never happened. The Bible tells us the 600,000 Israelites, they don't call them Jews, crossed the desert. It never happened. All the Pharaoh making them the builders of pyramids. Actually, Egyptian archaeologists like Zahi Hawass have proved that no slaves were employed in building the pyramids. There is in Giza, by the pyramids, the village or town of the people who built the pyramids. These were workers. They were well paid. They were well fed. They had to be, because they worked very hard. So the idea that Jews built the pyramids or built something else, this is just nonsense. But those archaeologists in the Palestine Exploration Fund were not just archaeologists. They were three things. Each of them was, first of all, an archaeologist of an ideological nature, wanted to prove that the Bible was right. Secondly, most of them were serving officers in the British Imperial Army. Mm-hmm. And thirdly, there were people of the church. A lot of them were parsons. So if you look at the Palestine Exploration Fund, supposedly a scientific organization, everyone is Reverend Colonel, what's it? So they had three interests, and the three interests met the needs of the empire. The empire, the British Empire, needed a land route to India. Mm-hmm. And the land route to India has to go through Palestine. And Palestine is exactly at the connection of two, and some people say three large blocks of land, Asia, Africa, and Europe. This is what Palestine is. It's a connecting tissue between cultures. So you have to go through Palestine wherever you want to go, if you're in Africa, or if you're in Asia, or if you're in Europe. Yeah. And that is the importance of Palestine, even in very old times. All the pharaohs have to go to Palestine in order to get to Syria, in order to get to Lebanon. They got a lot of wood from Lebanon. There's no, there is no building timber in Egypt. Mm-hmm. It's different. It can't grow the timber that Lebanon grows. Yeah. So they had to go to a number of areas, and everywhere that they had to go militarily, they had to pass through Palestine. So this is an old thing. And the British Empire wanted to get Palestine from the beginning of the 19th century. You will remember that the very beginning of the 19th century is the attack on Egypt. Napoleon is taking Egypt. Then he loses it within 2 years to the British, and the British stay. And they take all the treasures of Egypt to the British Museum and to other museums. So in order to actually have a safer route and a shorter route to India, which is the jewel of the crown of the empire, they have to hold Palestine and they have to hold Arabia. So the British spent the 19th century working out ploys on how to control Palestine and Arabia. And very famous people like Lawrence of Arabia is playing a part in those two ploys. Yeah. So this is what the 19th century is about in Britain.
يعني قصدك إن الطموح الإسرائيلي أو طموح نتنياهو بإسرائيل الكبرى ده حقيقة عبر التاريخ من القرن تقريبا ال19.
Now, I'll come to answer your question, which you started with, and I didn't answer it yet. Yeah. And that is, what is the difference between the 7th of October, before Zionism. The 7th of October and after? Yeah. Now, the 19th century sees a lot of British activity to grab Palestine, but they are not managing to do it because they can't really knock out the Ottoman Empire. Uh-huh. And they have to wait until the chance comes in the First World War. But not only that, you need people to take it over. And that is a time when even the British Empire can't start new British colonies. It's a time of modernity. Modernity was against colonialism. Mm-hmm. So the British or the French they established their colonies in the 16th, 17th
century.
Yeah, there was an old mode of control. At the end of the 19th century, they can't do this. But then come the Zionists that followed Herzl at the end of the 19th century. They are looking for an empire They're looking everywhere for an empire. Herzl goes to see the Sultan of the Ottoman Empire. He goes to see the Tsar. He goes to see the Kaiser. He tries to see the British king, but the British king wouldn't meet with him. But every empire was tried by the Zionists over 20 years. They spent 20 years speaking. Herzl personally spoke to all those people I mentioned. Mm-hmm. So they offered them the Jewish Zionism that was the continuation of what they already started in Britain, Christian Zionism. And they offered them millions of people in Europe that will come and take the country for the British, for Europe, to build a camp of European values, of colonialism, of imperialism, of capitalism in Palestine. That's what they offered them. And this is already there in the book of Herzl, which in his diary. So it's not new. And the British needed those people because they couldn't send British people to Palestine. It wasn't something that an empire like Britain could do. But they could suggest that they are helping Jews who are suffering in Russia under pogroms and so on. And therefore, they will build what they call a national home for them in Palestine. And that looked like it supports self-determination, it is democratic, it is progressive. So this was possible to persuade, for example, the Americans after the war that they should support this. They should support the Balfour Declaration. Of course, nobody talked to the Palestinians. Now, think about what Israel is doing. Israel is doing what Britain has done. Okay? Britain, in the Sykes-Picot Agreement, sat with, Sykes and Picot, a Frenchman and a British, sit with a pen and pencil and a ruler, and divide the Middle East with lines, I mean, borders are not lines. Look at the European borders. Hardly ever is there a straight line. All the, the lines of in Egypt, in Jordan, in Iraq, Syria, these are all straight lines. Yeah? Why? Because they had a small map and they put, lines on it, It didn't mean anything. It wasn't following populations, languages, culture. The language is there everywhere, is Arabic. The culture is Islam, it didn't need to be divided. The Turks didn't divide it. Yeah. So there were different regions, like the region of Syria included Lebanon, included Palestine. It made sense. Sham, exactly. Yeah. So there was the Maghreb, there was the Mashriq. These were huge areas, and there was the Gulf. But it wasn't divided with all those straight lines. That's what the British have done. They've reorganized the world so it fits better on their maps. So this is, before October 7th, we have a Zionism which starts very small. After the letter that we call the Balfour Declaration. Is sent to Lord Rothschild, there are less than 8% of Jews in Palestine. Now, can you imagine the... I don't know what to call it. This is really barbaric. To think that you'll come to a country where you are less, like 6% of the population, and you're going to take it over? This is like North America. You come in 3 boats, and you take a whole continent.
Millions of people.
Yeah. And you know that it will take hundreds of years. The Zionists didn't take hundreds of years. They did it in 30 years. Between 1917 and 1947, they have completed all their preparations to take Palestine. So it's a process. Zionism is a process. It's about taking Palestine, but not just about taking Palestine. Palestine is the basis, is the home, is the heart of what they want to do, a larger empire, which is they call Greater Israel. So now they have, the south of Syria, parts of Lebanon, parts of what used to be Jordan. Parts of what used to be in Egypt, that's Gaza. And their plan even includes Cyprus. Can you imagine? Yeah. And that's why they are now starting to think about Turkey, because Greater Israel also includes a small part of Turkey. It's a map that somebody drew on the basis of nothing at all. But that map has now become what they want to achieve. But they couldn't achieve it. Before October 7th, the achievements were incremental. You attack a village in the West Bank, and then you attack another village.
Baby steps.
Another village, yeah. One after the other, you remove more and more Palestinians. Now, more than 1 million Palestinians already left the West Bank over the years, since 1967. Many of them Christians, because they find it easier to get places elsewhere. So they're doing it, and they're doing it slowly, but it's very, very clear what they're doing.
خليني أفكر حضرتك برضو بمصطلح مهم جدا أنت استخدمته، ألا وهي هندسة الفوضى. هل ده يطبق على اللي احنا بنتكلم فيه دلوقتي؟ أنت وصفت إسرائيل بهندسة الفوضى في المنطقة.
Definitely it is applicable. Because what is Israel good at doing? Why is Israel important for the West? What is it delivering? I mean, the Americans have now put into the Gaza genocide about 40 billion. 40 billion is what Israel got in 10 years. And even when it got it in 10 years, it was the largest sum that any other country got. And Israel is a small smidgen. It's a tiny country, yeah? And yet it gets the highest aid from the United States, mainly military.
They call it investment.
Well, it is an investment in control. Israel is an investment in controlling the Middle East. In controlling the Middle East for American, supposedly, American interest. I don't think this is true, but Americans... So
what do you think then?
Well, Americans are told that it's their interest to control the Middle East through Israel. For example, Americans now believe, which they didn't believe until 2 or 3 years ago, that to destroy Iran is an interest of the American empire. Now, remember that every year Netanyahu would come to the UN and to the Congress in the US with his carefully nonsense maps, like of the bomb and all that shit. I mean, every year he would say, we have to destroy Iran or it'll destroy the world. In 2 weeks, they will have a bomb. In 5 days, they'll have a bomb. He's done it for 40 years now. It took 40 years to persuade the Americans. In other words, it took 40 years and President Trump to persuade the Americans that they have to destroy Iran for Israel, not for America.
But the question is, what are the benefits Israel gains from destroying Iran?
Well, I don't think that Israelis don't get a benefit from destruction, not directly. The country that they live in lives on death. I mean, really lives on death and destruction. 90% of the money that Israel is making by selling stuff is done by selling arms and what they call security, which is basically spying after people all over the world, breaking into their telephones, breaking into their computers, breaking into government systems that you want to control, etc. So controlling crowds, making sure that the people in Britain don't go on demonstrations for Palestine, etc. So this is what they make a living from. They're not like the Chinese who sell cars or who build ports or would build airports or roads or railways. That's what the Chinese make a living in. They come and say, we will build the roads in Kenya. And they build the roads. They can get money for it. They get work for Chinese people. They get rich. China is now a rich country. It used to be very miserable. It's the richest country on earth now. So they are living very well by business, by trade.
Without destroying people.
Yeah, they don't destroy anybody. They even don't attack Taiwan, you know. So this is true about a lot of the Eastern regimes. Look at Vietnam, that has become really, think about Vietnam in the 70s, yeah? Now Vietnam is a country that produces a lot of the stuff. You know, it produces our trainers, clothes, etc. So this is the West. This is there is the West. The West lives on destruction. Americans sell arms. Americans destroy.
It's a very dangerous statement.
Well, it is true, is it not? Yeah. America has 997, basically 1,000 military bases across the globe.
هل من المنصف ان احنا نصف قوى الشرق بالقوى التي تؤثر بالقوى الناعمة وقوى الغرب من خلال الدمار والاستعمار؟
Look, the West is declining. The West is declining very fast. We see it in Britain. We see it in the United States. If you've ever been to America, you know that America doesn't have a single airport that looks like an airport in China. That looks like an airport in Vietnam even. Is this not true? I mean, you know, American airports are really horrible places. You know, look at the huge cities of China and, you know, cities in the United States. Look at the railways in China and
New York.
You know, the West is declining very fast. And that's why all that is left to the West is war, destruction, chaos. Chaos is making a lot of money for the United States. The war in Ukraine is now a moneymaker for Trump. The Europeans are paying. They buy American arms. The Ukrainians get the arms. The arms are no good, actually. A lot of them fail against Russian arms. They would definitely fail against Chinese arms. But there is the interest of making money. So chaos is a very good business for the West. It doesn't help anyone apart from the billionaires. It doesn't help people in America. You know, the fact that somebody can make few billions by selling missiles is not helping the people in, you know, the cities, which ICE is now hunting people. The cities of America are now becoming militarized. They suffer decay. There is no money for that. All the money is going into building bases, attacking other countries, taking other countries, taking the rulers of other countries and bringing them to court for no reason at all. So basically the West has now become a war party. Europe is about defeating Russia now.
Are they capable of doing it?
No, they're not, but that's not the point. The point is they don't need to fight Russia because Russia doesn't want to fight them.
But the Western narrative is always saying about the hostile regime, I mean Russian hostile Putin. Once he gets Ukraine, He's not going to stop there.
Well, this is nonsense. Really, it is nonsense. Russia provided cheap gas and oil to Germany, which is the main industrial nation. Yeah, the Germans bought into the American narrative, decided to commit suicide, industrial suicide, by not taking gas and oil from Russia. So basically, the whole thing is engineered as a destructive process. The Americans don't care if Ukraine is totally destroyed. They are making a lot of money out of it. The people, not. But the people who sell the arms, yes, they're making a lot of money. Trump is making a lot of money and plans to make even more money by rebuilding Gaza as a casino. And he'll have to get rid of the Palestinians, but that's obvious, yeah? The Palestinians don't belong in Palestine. That's what they believe in. So what we have, that's the kind of chaos engine. They can't get money from building. They can only get money if they destroy. And they destroy. So, of course, the destruction in Ukraine was done by Russia. But the real reason for it is the West. Because the West wanted to surround Russia with different regimes which are hostile to Russia.
يعني حضرتك ذكرت ان الصهيونية بدأت في بريطانيا ودعمت من النظام البريطاني عبر السنين اللي فاتت، عبر القرون كمان نقدر نقول. لكن برضو في نفس الوقت بريطانيا كانت البذرة اللي حضرتك وصلت ليها في أوائل السبعينات وبدأت تحارب الفكر الصهيوني.
No, I don't think so. I mean, Britain was, like Switzerland in some periods. Different countries become political islands of people that are political exiles. Yeah. So Marx was here in the 19th century. Ho Chi Minh was here. There's a lot of, actually, Stalin is visiting. Trotsky is living here sometimes. So, yeah, I mean, people came to London because it wasn't on the continent. It was a bit further away. It was a bit of a distance from the regimes of Europe. So traditionally, London was an exile port of call, yeah? People lived here. The anti-Zionist basis of Israelis and Palestinians was built in London. That's true. But it was insignificant for London at the time. London has supported Zionism more than anybody, longer than anybody. Since 1916, every government in Britain was Zionist. This has not happened in France. This has not happened in the United States. The United States is not really supporting Israel until 1967. So we have in Britain the longest supportive regime, an empire when it starts. And when the empire is gone, they're still supporting Israel and Zionism. So that's the first thing. Now, the support that Britain is giving Israel is not supporting the British people. Like the American people are not benefiting from supporting Zionism. Everyone hates America now. They didn't used to hate America when I was here, and young people in America fought against the war in Vietnam and were an example for us. And the students were an example for students everywhere as political activists, as people that want freedom, not just for themselves, but for others. People didn't hate America in the way that they do now, because America is supporting all the wrong causes. Now, the attack on Iran is an example. In 1953, the Iranians found that all their oil is controlled by British Petroleum. So Iran, a very rich country, is not benefiting. The people of Iran are not benefiting from the oil. And so a prime minister was elected democratically to change this. And Mossadegh, when he changes it, that's it. They finish him off. Nasser comes to power after a revolution in Egypt, and he wants to work for the Egyptian people. And there is, a huge base. The largest British base in the world is on the canal. The canal is Egyptian. 20,000 Egyptians died digging it. What are the British doing there? Yeah. So Nasser is actually nationalizing the canal because his talks with the British came to nothing, because he knows that they're trying to kill him. They tried to kill him like the Americans tried to kill Castro. Tens of times they tried to kill Nasser. So he nationalizes the canal, and then the two empires and Israel attack Egypt.
56.
What is this? This is already when they're not empires anymore. So, this kind of thinking, which is European, which is American, and that's why we call it Western, because this is the West. The West is working through attacks, through takeovers, through destruction, through removal of regimes, regime change. Regime change is now working for 100 years.
هل الصهيونية ما هي إلا امتداد فلسفي للسياسة الاستعمارية؟
It's difficult. It's more complex.
How complex?
When I used to say in revolutionary organizations in the 70s and 80s, when I was young, and I was always the youngest, I said to them, Israel has a measure of control of the West that nobody has. And they used to laugh at me and say, it's not the tail that wags the dog, it's the dog that wags the tail. Now, hang on a minute. This tail, Israel, is wagging the dog in Washington, is wagging the dog in London, is wagging the dog in Berlin.
Because this tiny state is controlling the whole Western power.
Isn't it? Of course it is. Of course it is. So you have to ask yourself why that is. And this is a very difficult question.
Thank you.
Yeah, it is a very difficult question. I mean, you can explain it on a different basis in each of the countries. And that takes a long time, but I'll be very brief. Israel is offering the West a model of control that is quite unique. It is ready to do things that the West is not ready to do itself.
Dirty work, you mean?
Dirty work, exactly. These are the words that of the German chancellor. Yeah, Scholz have said this. They are doing our dirty work for us. What is dirty work? It's genocide. Okay, it's settler colonialism. It's attacking. The day that al-Shara took Syria, in the morning, in the afternoon, Israel has already destroyed all the military bases in Syria. Mm-hmm. So this is what the Americans couldn't do it. They would have to wait weeks to send all the stuff there, and then they will still need Israel for supplying the fuel for the aeroplanes.
Logistics,
and all that. So Israel is itself. It's called an airplane carrier of the United States. That's what it is. It has a number of American bases, but more than that, it has an American army which is called Israeli. That's what it has. It has. It's not part of America, but it behaves if it's running America. Yeah. Netanyahu last week came to Washington and told Trump, I don't accept your talks with Iran, stop it, and attack them. And if you're not going to do it, I'm going to make you do it. That's what he told, the most, supposedly, the most powerful man on earth. And you know what? He's right. He can make Trump attack Iran whether Trump wants it or not. Now, that's quite a power. That is incredibly powerful. Now, he can make Starmer support the genocide. He did. Now, don't tell me that supporting a genocide is helping the people of Britain. Are we richer? Are we more relaxed? Are we more happy in Britain because people are dying in Gaza like in the Holocaust? I mean, who is happier because of a Holocaust? Who is richer because of a Holocaust? Not the people of Britain, not the people of France, not the people of the United States. So Israel is basically a destructive engine. It's like a big bulldozer destroying the Middle East, one country after another, for the boss in Washington, for the small boss in London, for a slightly bigger boss in Berlin. And they say so. They tell us Israel is doing a dirty work for us.
بذكر الهولوكوست، حضرتك ذكرت في محاضرات كتيرة مدى التشابه بين الهولوكوست واللي بيحصل في غزة. ما مدى التشابه بما انك يعني والديك نجوا من الهولوكوست وعارف التفاصيل اللي حصلت في المعسكرات النازية؟
There are great similarities, but there are more differences. The Holocaust, you see, my parents survived Auschwitz, so this is my family story, and I've researched it for many decades. The Holocaust was a very secret affair. Secretly, in 1942, a meeting happens in a place called Wannsee, which is near Berlin, and they decide that out of the 11 million Jews that exist in the world, they can destroy at least half of them. And they plan it. This is and when they write the report, they don't say, we will kill them. They just say, we will move them. So no one in Germany knows about it. This is never published. And only after the war, those papers will be found. The building of Auschwitz, the building of the 6 camps, Treblinka, all those 6 camps were built secretly. Everything that was done in secret. So the Holocaust was done very secretly, quietly. Nobody stood up on television. There was no television there, and said, I'm glad that, we're doing that. Now look at the destruction of Gaza. Every Israeli politician is proud. Every Israeli soldier is sending their family a message on WhatsApp or TikTok saying, this university behind me, I destroy it for you, my dear wife, on your birthday. Yeah, that's what they're doing. They're talking about it in a way that the Nazis never did. Why? Because the Nazis knew that what they're doing is criminal. They knew that. They understood that. They still wanted to do it, but they knew that they have to be quiet about it. That you cannot be proud. There's a famous speech by Himmler in 1943. It's called the Posen speech, when he says to the people who do the killing, the SS officers, he said to them, you are doing the most important work of the Third Reich. We never can talk about this work. You cannot be proud of it. You are heroes, but no one will know about you because we have to keep it quiet. Israel is doing the opposite. The ICC and ICJ have found Israel to have committed genocide.
How do you explain this, Professor?
It's very difficult.
Why they are proud about it? Why they just go on live and they say it proudly that I'm killing civilians and children even?
Well, there are when you do genocide, there are only 2 things you can do. You can keep it quiet,
Okay, as it happened in
And that
Holocaust.
happened so many times. When the Turks killed the Armenians, nobody knew. When the Germans killed the Herero in Africa, nobody knew. You keep it quiet. The other thing is to say, I am doing an important task because I was attacked and I'm now paying them back. And so the Israelis always choose the second way. Now, nobody before Israel has been proud about genocide, but they are doing things for the first time. A lot of the things that Israel is doing is done for the first time, yeah? So this was done for the first time. They decided that they can't hide it. You know, today, with the internet, with the connectivity, with online, you can't hide it when you kill people in such numbers. Look at the weight of explosives used in Gaza. On the 8th of October, they started the bombing, the day after the Hamas attack. So there were 21 days to the end of November, yeah? In those 21 days, 3 weeks, they used 2 atomic bombs, like the ones dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Okay? Those 2 bombs in Japan killed 250,000 people. So they used, in 21 days, 2 atomic bombs. I mean, the equivalent of, yeah? This is what the Nazis dropped on the whole of Britain in a year of the Blitz. Okay? In a year of the Blitz, on the whole of Britain, 40,000 people died in the Blitz in Britain. The Nazis dropped the same weight that was dropped on Gaza in 3 weeks. So we're talking about destruction which is unimaginable. And, the number of the Hamas Ministry of Health said that in those 21 days, 8,000 Palestinians died. This is nonsensical. This is really nonsensical, because those 8,000 Palestinians whose bodies were found died in tower blocks. This is the time that they destroyed all the tower blocks in Gaza. When you destroy a tower block, if you kill 200 people in a tower block, you only probably find 50 of them. The rest of them are either underneath, rebels, yeah. Or, because when you drop a 2-ton bomb, bodies disappear.
Evaporated.
They are totally evaporate. Yeah. So the figures are probably 4 or 5 times the real figures. And it made sense that, the number will be closer to 40,000, which is what happened in Britain with the same weight of explosives. So, first of all, the numbers are wrong. But when you do something like this in the light of the media of the whole world, remember in 2023, the internet was still working. Those journalists in Gaza were still alive. They were sending reports every day and every hour and every minute to the whole world. So you can't hide it. It's not an option to hide what you're doing. So if you can't hide it, you better be proud of it. And that is the result of a decision. Now, of course, you have to say, they beheaded babies, they, raped women, they, you invent all those stories, atrocity inventions. And you are just, this is vengeance for what they did to us. And you call what Hamas did in one day a Holocaust. Now, you know that on the 7th of October, in all probability, the IDF killed as many as Hamas did in Israel, because their helicopters have a missile called Hellfire. And hellfire is not called hellfire for nothing.
For a reason.
Because it is 1,200 degrees centigrade. The fire of that missile is 1,200 degrees, which means the iron of cars is actually
melts.
It melts. So Hamas has got nothing that can do that. Okay, Hamas has got RPGs. Yeah, that's all. They have rifles and RPGs and some, pieces of rockets that, if they fall on your head, you get a headache. Yeah, but we're not talking about an army. Yeah, so they have destroyed with their helicopters the cars in the Nova Music Festival. You know about that. Every car that was driving to Gaza with people that were hijacked was burnt. Yeah, they burnt the car and the people were burnt to crisps. If you look at the pictures that the Israelis themselves shared, everything is like, a burnt skeleton.
So this is IDF work, not Hamas.
Yes, and the pilots of the helicopters actually admitted that they didn't know what they're shooting at. They said so on Israeli television. On the second and third day, and after about 12 days, there were 2 rounds of interviews with the helicopter pilots, and they said the chaos was so intense that we had to shoot anything that moved was shot at. So we can't say who we killed, because we shot at all the cars, we shot at people walking, we shot at motorcycles, anything that moved, we shot at. So they shot at, burnt, you can see it in the picture, hundreds, more than 1,000 cars are burned to crisp. Hamas couldn't do it, never did it. So that's one thing. The second thing is, how come that Hamas managed to kill so many soldiers in their bed on the morning of the 7th? How come that the most expensive wall in the world that, had technology that there isn't in outer space has failed to give a warning? The whole line of 40 kilometers along Gaza was full of electronically operated, automatically operated machine guns. There were thousands of machine guns. If you cross the line, a human is not even involved. The machine gun kills you. It's 8 meters high and it's 12 meters in the ground. And it took about 5 minutes to break the wall. And none of those machine guns
worked.
No, they didn't shoot anything. How do you explain this? All the cameras, all the microphones, all the machine guns. Netanyahu didn't come from his home to the command center until 10 o'clock in the morning. And obviously he was told at 6 o'clock in the morning. What is this? Now, until the 7th of October, Israel was the most divided country on earth. You probably remember that hundreds of thousands of Israelis went into the streets against Netanyahu, against his judicial coup, against the changes he's making. Hundreds of thousands of people. If this was happening in Britain, the same would have to be like 15 million people going into the streets. It never happened against government. So what is the meaning of the 7th of October? How did it happen? And, Netanyahu refuses to have an inquiry. Why? Why does he refuse to have an inquiry? Why did he not allow the army or the judiciary to find out how Hamas and Jihad managed what they did on the 7th of October, which is incredible. Now, not only that, you come from Egypt. The Egyptians the Egyptian intelligence service, 3 days before the war, gave Israel the plans of the attack. How do you explain this? Yeah, and then they attack the kibbutz, and next to the kibbutz, well, what else can we assume? Now, why would Israel let it happen? I can't prove it, and I don't think we will ever get the proof because Netanyahu will not allow it to come out.
Yeah. نرجع تاني لنقطتنا بين التشابه والاختلاف ما بين الهولوكوست وما حدث في غزة.
You see, the Holocaust is not very similar because what the German Holocaust was very efficient. Every day, they managed to kill 20,000 people in Auschwitz. 20,000.
20,000.
How? It was a factory. It was a factory of death. But they didn't actually bomb people in their homes. They already took them from their homes. They took them from Warsaw. They took them from Poznań. They took them from all the towns in Poland, all the towns that they took in Russia, etc. So they brought them to a mass production factory of death. And therefore, it was very efficient. Killed them by gas, burnt them immediately. And this worked on a time basis of every 45 minutes, a new influx. And they had 5 centers of poisoning and burning. So it was the most efficient killing machine ever. And most of the work was done by the inmates. The Jews and the Russian prisoners of war did all the work. The Nazis just stood there with their dogs. Yeah, just watched it. Yeah. So that was a factory of death. That's very different from Gaza. Gaza is not just a genocide. It's an herbicide. It's, destroying the city. It's a medicide, destroying the hospitals. It is, destroying every school, destroying every university, destroying every clinic, every mosque, every church. In other words, it's destruction of life everywhere. It's a total removal of the ability to live. The Holocaust was not about that. The Holocaust was just about killing a group of people, not just Jews. They killed slightly more than 5.5 million Jews and almost 6 million prisoners of war from the Soviet Union. And then they killed a lot of other groups. Today, when they calculate the number of people who died in the Holocaust, it's about 18 million. We only talk about 6 million Jews, but this is wrong. So the Holocaust was a machinery of destroying the people, but keeping the buildings, keeping, the kind of infrastructure intact.
Signs of life still there.
Yeah. After the war, there will be places to go, and there will be a university, and there will be a hospital. I mean, there was a Jewish hospital in Berlin that survived the whole war. And there were 3,000 Jews left in Berlin. I don't have time to discuss this. But there were 3,000 Jews living in Berlin, and they used the Jewish hospital. And they were allowed to use the Jewish hospital. Nobody took the doctors and raped them like the Israelis did. Nobody destroyed the hospital. So the Nazis worked in a very different way. And sometimes what the Israelis are doing is, despite the fact that the numbers are very different, the brutality that the Israelis are using is really terrifying. The other thing which is very different is very few Germans did it. Do you see what I'm saying? Less than 3,000 Germans have destroyed 18 million people. This is incredible. Now, the Israelis use 300,000 troops in Gaza, at least. because these are the reserves. And of course, there is the normal army. So they used probably between 300 and 500,000 people in Gaza at different points in time. That's why I call it a democratic genocide, because most Israelis are involved in it. Either you do it, or your husband does it, or your son does it, or your friend does it. Yeah. So, and when Tel Aviv University asked people a very simple question in 2024: is Israel using enough force in Gaza, too much force in Gaza, or just the right amount of force in Gaza? So there are three possible answers.
The result?
The result, 97% of people, Jews, they didn't ask Arabs, 97% said enough or not enough.
Wow.
Okay? So some, at least half of them said not enough. It has to be more brutal. And only 1.5% said too much.
بروفيسور، هل في تفسير للسيكولوجية دي؟ يعني كيف وصل لشعب بيرى نفسه في أعظم ديمقراطية في الشرق الأوسط إن هو يوصل لهذه المرحلة من الوحشية؟ هل هي سيكولوجي ولا سيستم؟
Of course there is a system, you know that. You can't get this type of following of a sick idea like genocide without a system. And how do you get the system? I grew up in Israel. I know it.
And you've been an IDF soldier before.
Yeah. Of course, the IDF was very different in those days. But the system was the same system. If you learn, for example, you learn the Bible. The Bible is very important in our education. And if you look at the book of Joshua, and most people never looked at the book of Joshua, but it's a very important book for Zionism. The book of Joshua is 26 chapters. 26 chapters. Each chapter is telling you about the destruction of one community in Palestine. Okay? Actually, some of them are in one chapter, 2 communities are destroyed. Wow. Now, it's formulaic. Each chapter is exactly like the chapter before. Everything is the same, but the name of the people who died in chapter 3 is different from the name of the people who died in chapter 20. But that's the only difference. And what is the same is the instruction of God to the people of Israel. You would come to the city, you will burn the city, you will kill the men, women, and children, you will kill the horses, the dogs, all animals, you will collect all the gold and silver and give it to the temple, and so on. But nothing will remain. All the houses will be destroyed. And this is, every chapter tells you this formula. Everything has to be destroyed. Now, what is really interesting about the book of Joshua, it tells you about things that didn't happen. Because, archaeologists looked for the proof of the destruction of 31 cities. That proof doesn't exist. So what it is, it's an ideological book telling you about the taking of Palestine by a strong army of Israelites, and they destroyed 31 cities in the way that nothing remained. And then, at the book after Joshua, historically, is all those people that were destroyed, all those cities that don't exist, they're there. And the Bible talks about those for the next 20 books of the Bible. All those cities are still there. All the people living there, they are still there. It didn't happen. But when children, like we were, listen to the teachers, read the text, they recognize that, God is like a friend of their granny. God is telling them, you shall kill all those people because I say so. Yeah. And it's not just your right to kill them, it's your duty to kill them in order to cleanse Palestine of the unbelievers. It's like... basically what... I'm just giving you one example of what children study at school. There is a very funny holiday called Purim. You probably heard about it. I don't know. It's people, wear masks and, they dress up like, I don't know, sailors or soldiers or, whatever they like. And it's making a lot of noise and so on about Iran. About 2,000 years ago. Now, what is really interesting is that the high point of this festival of Purim is the celebration of a genocide. The Jews have supposedly killed 75,000 Persians in 3 days. And
kids are celebrating this.
That's what they are celebrating, yeah. The killing of 75 Persians that the Shah of Iran allowed them to kill, to genocide, yeah? So, what you're supposed to understand as a child when you celebrate a genocide. So, basically, what we have is a system that uses the Bible, that uses examples from history, where the Jews not always win, but they fight to the death. Masada. Masada is, a small place where Jews who fought against the Roman Empire found their death, by the Sea of Death, yeah, and the Dead Sea, and it's above the Dead Sea. It's Masada. The word is a little fort, a small fort is Masada, and basically they were there less than 150 people. When they realized that the Romans are around them, instead of saying to the Romans, "Okay, we're coming out," the Romans would let them live. No, they didn't come out. They killed all their wives and children, and then they committed suicide, mass suicide. This is the kind of examples that we as children were given for Jewish history. And think about it. Jews lived for 2,000 years without killing anyone. Mm-hmm. In Europe, in the Arab countries, in the Muslim world, Jews did not kill anyone. They never committed genocide. So you bring people from the whole of Europe to Palestine, and you tell them you are fighters like the Jewish fighters against the Romans.
You have one mission.
Yeah, to take the country, to kill the people, to control it. And people, and you're not like the Jews.
Be proud of it.
Yeah, and you're not like the Jews who for 2,000 years didn't kill anyone. You are not frightened of anyone. You're not frightened of killing. You're not frightened of genocide, because this is our history. Now, it's not our history.
It's a lie.
It's a lie. Now, before Zionism occupied Palestine, it occupied the Jewish mind. Mm. The mind of Jews, the mind of Christians, and the Christian Zionism. And then it occupied Europe, North America. These are the real occupations that you have before you can occupy Palestine.
It's really interesting. It's a really thoughtful conversation, Professor Haim.
You see, I alluded to the problem that there is with what happened on the 7th of October, which we don't know. And most people in Israel are asking themselves, like I'm asking you and myself, how did it happen? It couldn't happen. On the face of it, the systems didn't work. The army didn't come for 10 hours. You know that. For 10 hours. I mean, you know what Palestine is like? It's not Egypt. Mm-hmm. It's smaller than Cairo. So, to go from Tel Aviv to Gaza is 45 minutes in a car. Around Gaza, there are many, many army bases. Where was the army for 10 hours? And the only apparition of the army was those helicopters that were burning everybody. Mm. But the tanks didn't come, apart from few tanks that somehow found their way and actually killed Israelis in Kibbutz Be'eri, very famous cases. So you have to ask yourself, what happened there? And why did the Minister of Defense, Gallant, or ex-Minister of Defense, say a few weeks ago, Netanyahu is a liar? He says that he gave orders at 8 or 9 o'clock of the 7th of October. He wasn't even there. He wasn't there before 10 or 11 in the command center. Where was he? What was he doing? Who was he talking to? He wasn't talking to his defense minister, to his chief of staff, to the command of the army when such an amazing disaster attack is happening. So you have a lot of questions to answer. And the only thing that seems to make sense is that he was thinking, what can I do with this? Also, the women who are along the 40 kilometers around Gaza, who are the scouts, they look at it, they're soldiers, they're women soldiers sitting there. The young women, they're just recruits, they're 20 or so. Their only work is to know Gaza, to know the houses that they can see, to actually follow, sometimes with drones, what is happening everywhere in Gaza, through drones, through satellites, through spy planes, They're looking at Gaza 24 hours a day. And those women start reporting that Hamas is preparing a very large operation. You know why? Because Hamas did exactly what the Egyptians did in 1973. You remember that in 1973, they did maneuvers every day of taking and the Israelis at the beginning were very worried. But Sadat was very wise. He knew that if they do it for 3 or 4 or 5 months, the Israelis will think, because they are arrogant, they really can't do it. They are doing it for the population of Egypt to persuade them that they are trying. It's PR for the population. But actually they haven't gotten themselves to the chutzpah, the energy to actually attack us because we are the best. And then Sadat does it, and they are caught with the underpants down. Hamas did exactly the same. For few months, almost a year, they did the same thing again with tanks from cardboard and all kind of things. They showed the Israelis what they are going to do in Al-Aqsa flood. They showed them. And those women were reporting all this all the time. They were reporting they are preparing a large operation. And the Egyptians who sit, a few kilometers away also saw this and also reported it for, 4 or 5 months to the Israelis. And then 3 days before the attack, they said to them, here is the plan. We have found a plan and they are going to do it. We don't know when, but they are going to do it.
الايديولوجي بتاعت الصهيونية هل تغيرت بعد 7 أكتوبر؟ هل نقدر نقول إن في فرق في الايديولوجي ما بين قبل 7 أكتوبر وبعد 7 أكتوبر؟
The difference is that until the 7th of October, they said, we have a system. We are going to take acre by acre. This village, this town, you know. And we'll do it until there are no Palestinians left. And this works, but it'll take a very long time. This government came in, and they weren't going to wait. And Hamas gave them a chance of saying, this is the casus belli, the reason why we can attack Gaza and get rid of everyone, not just Hamas, not just jihad. Everyone in Gaza there are no innocents. Yeah? And not only that, we'll do it in the West Bank. So there is a mode change. They change from the mode of doing it safely but slowly to a mode of genocide, totality, attack with all the force, with all the power at their, with the whole system of destruction. And because Trump is now in power, and he is in their service, if you want. Now, I don't know what they have on Trump. But with Epstein, with the files, obviously they have a lot on Trump. And they have enough to say to Trump, if you don't do it, it all comes out. So he is in their hands. And then they thought, we've got 4 years to do it. Because, after that, we don't know who will be the president and whether they will be in our power as Trump is.
And this is a very important thing. So, in a nutshell, Israel doesn't want peace.
Israel never wanted peace. Never wanted peace. Peace is not an option because peace means you live with people. You don't attack them. You don't control them. They don't control you. You just live with them like Jews lived with Muslims all those years. It wasn't about control. It was about life. Mm-hmm. And you do what you need to live. Israel needs control. It persuaded itself very early, before 1948, that it has to control the whole Middle East. Look, they are now planning the destruction of Pakistan with the Baluchis, okay? They are working with the Baluchi freedom fighters, as they're called, and the Baluchis want to take half of Pakistan, as you know. So this is thousands of miles away from Israel. What have they got against Pakistan? Yeah? No, they are against any power. Pakistan has nuclear weapons. They are against them. So they will, it doesn't matter if it's 5,000 miles away. They are going to do it.
هل في نقدر نقول إن في المستقبل القريب إن في ثمن لهذه السياسات سياسة الجينوسايد؟
Look, the price is normally paid by people, not by the regime. Yeah. Whatever Trump is going to be to do to Iran, he will not pay the price. The Iranians will be paying the price. The Iranians already paid the price of 45 years of sanctions. So the leaders never pay the price unless they lose the war, like Hitler. Then they die. But if they win, and the Americans may not win everything, but they say they win it. So the price is never paid by the leadership. Sometimes a president does pay a price. For example, if they operate against the deep state, like John F. Kennedy, then they're killed by the deep state. But that's very unusual. Usually the president in the United States does what they're told and fine, and they don't pay a price. The elite doesn't pay a price. The elite stays, So the price in Israel, if they attack Iran, I think they will be destroyed. Militarily.
By who?
By Iran. And I think I said that there is a decline of the West. There is also a very serious decline of Israel, because Israel is part of the West. In the 12-day war, after 10 days, they ran to Trump and said, please get us out of here. We're running out of missiles. We can't defend Tel Aviv, you know. And Trump had to come and bomb the sites and get them out of trouble. And they did the same in 2006 when they attacked Lebanon. And Hezbollah did such a bloody attack on them after a whole month in the mountains, in the Shuf Mountains, that they went to the Americans and said, get us out of here. And America did. So sometimes they pay a price, but that price is paid by people, you know, soldiers. It doesn't matter. Soldiers can die. That's what they are there for. So this time it's different. This is not a war against an army. They are fighting against Iran like a country, Israel against Iran. Not the United States. The United States is thousands of miles away. They can't do anything to the people living in the United States. But Israel, they can destroy the cities.
لما حضرتك قلت ان الغرب او قوة الغرب بتختفي وبتتلاشى وان في قوة صاعدة الا وهي الصين، هل ده بسبب اللي حصل او كان سببه فشل PR للقوى الغربية من بعد 7 من أكتوبر؟
I don't think it was the reason. I mean, Western PR was already suffering very badly before because of the war in Ukraine, for example. Because of the attack on China that has never tried to attack the United States or any other country. Iran has never attacked any country. This is incredible that Iran is supposed to be the major terrorist of this earth. It suffered 8 years of war from Saddam that was a Western ruler. You know, he was sent there by the West to attack Iran. So the Iranians didn't attack Iraq. They had to, of course, defend themselves, but they didn't attack Iraq. He attacked them. Iran has not attacked anyone for more than 2,000 years.
لكن في مناظرة تقول إن كان في الحرب بالوكالة البروكسي وور، يعني كانت إيران كانت بتدعم النظام في سوريا، طبعا بتدعم حزب الله، بتدعم الفتنة الطائفية في العراق.
This is different. Yeah, I know what you're saying, but this is different. They didn't attack Syria. They didn't attack Lebanon. And they didn't attack Israel. But they didn't attack Israel. And actually, Hezbollah didn't attack Israel in 2006. It actually killed 2 people in a command car on the border because they were too close. And that started the Great War in 2006. So I think it's not as if Hezbollah has shot 1,000 missiles to Israel and then the war started. No. So even Hezbollah and even Hamas don't do that. They definitely shot missiles on Israel when Israel was attacking them. But they were never the first to attack. This is very interesting to remember. So Iran has not attacked another country. Iraq has attacked Kuwait, for example, and attacked Iran. But Iran did not attack another country. And you know what? The only time that Egypt, for example, attacked a country is in 1973. Yeah, because in 56, in 67, it was the Israelis that attacked. So there is a pattern. Israel attacks first. It attacks countries that normally have not attacked it. Even the Nakba in 1948, the war started in December 47. In December 47, the Israeli forces moved into the rest of Palestine and took over most of it. So, you know, people say the war started in May 1948. No, it did not. And the Israeli forces attacked most of the, Haifa, Tiberias, Jaffa. Jaffa was taken by Etzel in April, before May. Haifa was taken even earlier. Tiberias was taken even earlier. So these places where, half of the Palestinians were out of their homes, refugees, before the war started. But there was a war. There was a war that Israel started in December of 1947. So it depends, is a historian telling the story, or is a PR man from Israel telling the story? So Israel will attack. It cannot live without wars. It cannot live with waiting to be attacked. It never waits to be attacked.
للأسف أنا عايز أختم أو مش عايز أختم من جمال الحوار وثرائه، لكن خلينا أختم بسؤال ممكن يكون كبير شوية، وهو برغم اللي بيحصل دلوقتي وبرغم الحاجة ذكرته من انحدار القوى الغربية ومن انحدار وخفوت القوى الغربية وخفوت إسرائيل، هل في أمل؟
There's three things I think I want to say about this very briefly.
Yeah.
No one will live in peace in the Middle East as long as Israel is there. This is the last 80 years of history. I'm 80, so I know. The last 80 years are proof that as long as Israel is there, as long as Zionism is there, no one in the Middle East is safe. So this is proven. Other regimes might be better or worse, but Zionism is constant in what it is doing.
Okay.
Why am I saying that they are declining? Look, they've lived like this for 80 years, actually longer, but let's say just 80 years. They're talking about Jewish life, and they are supposedly making Jews safer. Now, did Jews die in Britain in the last 80 years? No. Were Jews murdered in great numbers in the United States? No. The only place where for 80 years the life of Jews and the life of everybody else is not safe is Israel. So we live in the area of the internet, of people speaking a number of languages. All of us speak a number of languages. We can move across and so on. And we know how people live. And Israelis go to many countries, and nowhere do they find this kind of life that they are living. So some people are saying that about 1 million Israelis already left Israel since the 7th of October. We have no exact information about this. I think probably the number is smaller, but it's not much smaller. Israelis, a lot of them have 2 or 3 passports. They can move. Palestinians can't. Palestinians will not move. I talked to you before about the 2,000 years that Jews turned to Christians and Christians turned to Muslims. These are the same people. They didn't go anywhere. They were living in Palestine, and sometimes they were Jewish, and afterwards they were Muslim. Okay, they're the same people.
Second thing.
Yeah. Now, basically now, what Israel is doing is saying, we will get rid of all the Muslims and the Christians. This is not just racist. This is not just Jewish supremacist. This is the worst crime in the crime book of humanity. And I don't think they can do that. So on the face of it, they are telling everyone that the war is finished, everything is fine in Gaza. It's just that people are dying like flies because there are no hospitals, there's no safe water, there's no food, there are no homes, there is, flood of, not of Hamas, but of water. And everything is not allowing life in Gaza. But for Israel, this is okay. At some point, Trump will rebuild it, send them to the moon, and everything will be fine. This is nonsense. It's not going to happen. The board of peace is a board of war. It's a board of genocide. It has mainly war criminals on the board of peace. So Israel is continuing to sell arms, is continuing the genocide, is continuing the attacks in Gaza, continuing. Now they already said very clearly all the Palestinians of the West Bank will be gone. They have 2 million Palestinian citizens of Israel. Now they start saying what they are going to do with them. They are going to get rid of them as well. So I want to hope, despite all that I said, that the world will not allow this. Because if the world allows it, there is no hope for any of us. There's no law, there's no order, there is no way of bringing anyone to court for anything. The Americans are now criminalizing the courts. The ICC, ICJ, they are criminalizing Francesca Albanese. You know, these are the criminals. The people who sit in the court as judges, they are the criminals. Francesca Albanese, who reports the crimes, she is the criminal. I think the world cannot exist like this. Not just Israel, not just the United States. I think we have to say enough is enough. Israel is like a cancer in the Middle East. It's an engine of destruction. And until we get rid of Zionism, not rid of the people. I'm not suggesting correcting murder by murder. I'm saying, let's go back to convivencia. Let's go back to one state in Palestine in which everyone is equal. The refugees should be allowed back. Not Jews from New York. The Palestinian refugees should be allowed back. That's what the UN said in 1949. Do it. Do it now. Now we can't do it, but I think we are seeing that Israel is hated universally. That would mean that gradually no one will want to do any business with Israel like they didn't want to do business with South Africa. Their sportsmen will not be welcome. Their films will not be shown. Their, theaters will not get shows outside. Their books will not be translated. I think this is what we are seeing the beginning of. People are saying enough is enough. We can't take this. Our children are now looking at destruction of children on their telephones. How do we explain it to our children?
Professor Haim, it's been a pleasure having you and have this thoughtful discussion. شكرا لك بروفيسور حاييم. شكرا لهذا اللقاء الرائع.
شكرا.